the Science Guy. Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Science rules.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Inertia is a property of matter. T minus 7 seconds.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Hi everyone, I'm Carissa.
And I'm Gabby.
And today we're replacing Bill because he's sick
Now let's get down to business.
to defeat the Huns.
No, Carissa, to talk about the cell membrane. Did you even look at the notes Bill left for us?
No, I was too busy making sure he was alright. He is sick after all.
I guess we should start the show now.
Yeah, I think we should too.
A phospholipid is a lipid consisting of glycerol bound to two fatty acids and a phosphate group. Phospholipids form a membrane that make up the outer layer of human cells and play a large role in determining what enters and exits the cell.
Phospholipids are amphithetic molecules that have both hydrophobic and hydrophilic components.
The phospholipid head is a hydrophilic phosphate group that can interact with water due to the presence of a phosphate group that is polar.
Hydrophilic molecules typically have polar groups, enabling them to readily absorb or dissolve in water, as well as in other polar solvents. Phospholipid molecules contain two fatty acid tails, which are nonpolar, hydrophobic, and only consist of carbon-carbon single bonds.
Hydrophobic describes the fact that nonpolar substances do not combine with water molecules.
The phospholipid bilayer is a two-layered arrangement of phosphate and lipid molecules that form a cell membrane. The hydrophobic lipid ends facing inward, and the hydrophilic phosphate ends facing outward.
Integral proteins function as transporters, channels, receptors, or proteins involved in accumulation energy and proteins responsible for cell adhesion.
The transmembrane is a type of integral membrane protein that spans the entirety of the cell membrane to which it is attached. They function as gateways to permit the transport of specific substances across the membrane.
Peripheral membrane proteins are membrane proteins that stick temporarily to the biological membrane with which they are associated. These proteins attach to integral membrane proteins or go inside the peripheral regions of the lipid bilayer.
Cholesterol is a compound of the sterile type found in most body tissues. Its function is an essential component of the cell membrane that is needed to maintain proper membrane permeability and fluidity. It is also needed for the synthesis of steroid hormones, vitamin D, and bile acids. Cholesterol is required for building and maintaining animal cell membranes.
Glycoproteins describe any class of proteins that have carbohydrate groups attached to the polypeptide chain. They function in the structure, reproduction, and immune system, hormones, and protection of cells and organisms. Glycoproteins are found on the surface of the lipid bilayer of the cell membranes.
Channels transport substances across the cell membrane by embedding the channel protein in the membrane and covering the entire membrane.
The carrier proteins facilitate diffusion of molecules across the cell membrane. The protein is embedded in the cell membrane and covers the entire membrane.
Recognition proteins act as ID tags to identify cells in the immune system.
Receptor proteins are used in intracellular communication.
Enzymes speed up the rate of chemical reactions within the cell.
So that's the end of our show.
Tune in next week, because I think Bill's going to be gone for a long time.
A long time.
Bye!
Bye!
Bill Nye the Science Guy. Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Gals.